Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Treasure hunt. We're on a treasure hunt today. So I don't know if you remember treasure hunts when you were a kid. I was talking with Beth Stiles yesterday, and she's done this as an adult, as team building exercises. I only remember it as a kid. So there's a treasure at the end, and you get little clues, and you have to find the clues, figure out the clue, and go to the next spot. And then whoever gets to the end first wins the treasure, which is really exciting when you're a kid, except when you lose. But I still loved it. And then there's the scavenger hunt, which is similar, but the scavenger hunt is you have to find different things, like find a blue cup under a tree or something, and so you run around and you try to find these different items, but still the contest is whoever gets all the items and ends up at the finish line wins the big prize. So we can see already that the limitation of this wonderful game is that it's only one person gets to win. So we're going to shift that. Everybody is a winner in God's treasure hunt. There's no one who's better than the other. And the other limitation is that the prize is always at the end. And even in religion, for a long time, that was also true. The prize was at the end. When you die, you're going to have all this good stuff. And you have to find all these things along the way and learn all the stuff. But none of that's the real thing. The real thing is when you die. So that we've learned that's not true. That the beauty of the heaven on earth consciousness is always with us. And so what we know in this beautiful teaching of religious science, of new thought, of spiritual progressive world is that we begin, as Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. We begin with the beginning, that there's only one power and one presence. So we have the treasure before we even start the hunt. It's already being revealed to us. It's one power, one presence, one love, one joy, that this entire universe is one. There's no othering. There is only one power, one presence. We begin our journey with the treasure. How awesome is that? And then you go on this treasure and you find different things on your treasure hunt throughout life. And then as you end your life, you just have more oneness. So there's no ending. So ultimately what we see is there's no ending and beginning to this. So we are living in a treasure hunt, and then we recognize as we're going through life what the treasures are from Spirit, and they're constantly revealing themselves, aren't they? I mean, you've all been on this journey for a long time. You're constantly having these new discoveries. Oh, I just read this thing. You can't wait to tell your friend, or this insight, or I went to this amazing workshop, or I had this. It's so exciting, and to really honor those moments of treasures. So I'm recognizing that there's infinite treasures. They're available every day. So look for them, find them. And today I'm just going to give three treasures that has been revealing themselves, arising this past week, that I want to share in the infinite choices that we have. So the first treasure that I want to talk about today is the treasure of self-talk. I love that Jerry just said, that awareness that she decides, that we have inside of us the ability to choose. We are not forced to think anything. Nobody in the external world has any power over what you choose to think about. I mean, isn't that extraordinary? Nobody, nothing has any power over our own mind. We are the controllers and the executors of our mind and our heart, of what we choose to place our attention on. And I know, looking out, I know everyone here, and I'm sure online too, have been on this spiritual journey for a long time, so this isn't something that I'm revealing like, oh, I've never thought of that before. It's just a gentle reminder that the way we talk about ourself is huge. Because so often, I remember dating somebody once who was in this teaching, and he said to me, oh, you're an out-picturing of my consciousness. So he's recognizing the inner source. I just wanted to point out, but I also have my own reality separate from you. But anyway, it mirrors. They say we teach people how to treat us. What we're saying to and about ourselves all the time becomes habit patterns. Life is energy. And if our self-talk tends to be consistently they're like we say, well, I'm just being honest. We do want to be honest with ourselves, and I'll get to that in a minute. But being honest doesn't mean beating yourself up over and over throughout the day. That might be an experience you are having, and we want to be honest about it, but that's not the self-talk, that's not the rhythm and the pattern and the energy that we want to keep going all day long. There's another piece to this. I should have begun. What I meant to begin with is I did begin. We begin and end the journey with oneness, and that's the treasure. So all of these are treasures to discover oneness. So self-talk is a discovery of oneness. So when we say self, when we realize there is no other, not only people, but circumstances, plants, animals, whatever we're talking about in our head, not just about me, Harriet, but about anybody or anything, is also self-talk. Because everyone is part of myself, right? So we have to start looking at, or not start, because I know you're all doing it, reminding ourselves to have a conversation in our own inner life about everything in a way that is gentle and kind and compassionate. Because how we're talking about other people is how we're talking about ourselves. If we say, well, I'm just, again, being honest or being true, it's still a vibration that I'm carrying around inside of me, of separation. And if our treasure is oneness, which it is, that's the ultimate treasure, let's keep it simple. If you just know oneness and no separation, you got the golden key. So if your goal is oneness, to talk about someone as other in your own head, it's them, I don't like who they are, blah, 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 whatever it is, or I don't like this situation, and you're just perseverating, just going over and over the same thing over and over. That becomes an energetic vibration of separation, and you are now in hell. Hell says it'd be drastic, but you're in pain. It's not a pleasant feeling to be in that perseverating negativity about anyone or anything. So the question then becomes, how do we be honest, authentic, and not perseverating these negative things? And that's the great treasure. There's no simple answer. I'm going to give you a simple answer, but it's not simple. And the simple answer is to do both. To say, I don't particularly care for this person or this experience, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. The way I know for me is I feel a little energetic constriction. So it's around a person or it's around myself. Something I don't like in myself, I always know because I start to constrict a little bit. I get a little defensive. I get a little, just hit something I don't like about myself. It's what I don't like about somebody else. It's a circumstance I don't like. I already feel agitated about the presidential election. The energy's beginning to amp, and I find myself constricting around it. How do I be with this in a healthy way? There's a lot of othering, and I want to be honest and authentic, but I don't want to constrict. Everything that we teach and what we know is that it all starts inside of us. So if I'm trying to fix it out there, I'm trying to fix the effect and not the cause. So the work is, and this is why it's a journey, it's not an instant thing, is I have to do the work on how do I get to a place of oneness? How do I love my enemies? I'm not going to pretend that I like someone that I don't, but does it really serve me or that person to go on and on and on in my own inner world about how terrible they are? There's got to be something in us that sort of sets off, oh no, here I go again. How can I shift how I'm talking about this person in this situation that acknowledges that I feel uncomfortable, and at the same time, paradoxically, I know that right where they are, the divine presence is. That I know, as much as I don't want to know, that this divine loving presence loves them as much as this divine loving presence loves me. Whew, hate that. I know I'm better than them. But what I am finding and have found is that the more I give myself to doing that, I actually feel better and freer and more whole. I can be honest. No, I don't prefer this person, but at the same time, this person is a glorious light of God. And I'm holding both of those thoughts in myself. I can't say it outwardly if I'm not holding it inwardly. I remember Reverend Joan Stedman, she has a center in Oakland called Agape Bay Area, and a lovely minister. And she said something, I've never forgotten it. She said, I want to know that when my name crosses somebody's awareness, that I'm safe inside their head. And I want people to know that they're safe inside me. Wow. Are people safe inside my own interior awareness? We're reading this book, Autobiography of a Yogi. You're all welcome to come Tuesday nights. And it's not in this reading, but somewhere in one of the things that he wrote, he was talking about how both he and his guru, and once you grew, and we know people have these gifts of being able to see inside of people. And he said, but we have the absolute commitment that we never enter in anyone's interior world without their permission. He's not a fan of people who uninvited go into somebody's interior world. But it got me to thinking, would I feel comfortable with someone who seems very holy and pure going inside my inner world? Is my inner world a nice place to be? Is it a place that they'd be like, wow, or would they be like, ooh, that's what she's really thinking? Is that where her conscious, and this isn't to beat myself up. I recognize this is a journey. This is what we're all on. I don't think I'm the only one who has struggles with this, but it's a struggle that I want to be on. It's a treasure that I really want to continue to dig deeper and deeper into my soul and into my heart, so that I can say that I'm a safe place for everyone, even the people that I have different perspectives from, even people that I think are exteriorly doing things that I am against, and yet behind all this is the divine love, because that's what our teaching is, right? That the divine presence is this entire earth, not just the good half of the earth, but all of the earth. So everything that's happening, this presence never stops loving. And if that's what this presence is, and I want to be in alignment with that presence, I need to start practicing and continue to practice loving those people who I don't want to love. Having generous thoughts about people I don't want to have generous. This is self-talk. Our self-talk includes everything and everyone externally, and it includes our own individual self, because I know, having many conversations, that we can be very hard on ourselves. Sometimes we're more generous to people outside, or more forgiving than we are to ourselves, and we just, or we don't even know that we're doing it. It becomes so habit pattern to think negative thoughts about ourselves. So it's not that we're perfect in doing this. I really appreciated listening to someone who's always talking about the power of thoughts, not in the New Thought world, but just in the world that they live in, but also saying, it's not that I don't have negative thoughts. We all have negative thoughts. It's just, how do I approach it? Am I gentle with myself, or do I go, oh, I'm having negative thoughts, I'm such a terrible person, God would never love me with these bad thoughts? I mean, already we're not having compassion for our enemy, and our enemy in that moment is our judgmental self. It's okay. Love our enemy. Everything is an opportunity for us to love a little bit more, be a little kinder, a little gentler, not just externally, but internally. That is something that will impact our world in such a powerful way. I know you've all been doing this, but I just invite you this week to really dig deep in this treasure. Really dig deep on your interior world and look at your habit patterns of thought. Even I would not even just say your conscious habit patterns apart, but if you notice, sometimes I have thoughts. I have the thoughts that I'm directing, but then there's all these little other thoughts that I'm sort of aware of that I'm having, but I'm not totally bringing it consciously. Just try to notice those periphery thoughts too. I'm not good enough. I said something wrong. They said something wrong. They did it wrong. I don't like that person, so I don't want to be around that person. And so I'm going to have this energetic wall that shuts me off from them. You can love that person, have a boundary, absolutely, and yet still know that the power and the presence of God is right where they are. Bless them. I don't prefer to be around them, but I bless them in their beautiful life in God. And they will find their people, and I have my people. Yeah? Treasure? Yes. Great treasure. We're on a treasure hunt today. So even if you just take 1 second, think of one thing that you don't like about yourself, just take a second and just say, I love you to that part of yourself. Just a second. One part of yourself that you don't like, and just say, I love you. I love you anyway. I love you anyway. Treasure hunt. You're just a little bit more healed, a little bit more connected with who you really are in that moment, in this moment. Second treasure turned out not to be a treasure. And this happens on treasure hunts too. We go seeking for treasures and then they don't show up. I read this great story this week and I'm like, this is going to be so good for Sunday, and I couldn't wait to share it. And then I got on my computer into the place where I got it, which needs a password, and my password wasn't working, and I can't tell you how long. I'm like, it's going to work. I kept doing it, thinking it was going to change. I don't know why I thought that. So I don't have my story. It was a great story. So just put here, great story, an undug treasure for a future moment. But that happens, right? We're looking and we're looking for something and it's not there. But what did we learn? We're like, oh, I was expecting something and it's not there. I was expecting something good, it's not there. We know this world is an infinite power universe of good. It's going to be somewhere else. It's going to be in the rest of the talk. So we just trust. Always. We let it go. We don't hold on. We don't keep looking. We don't keep trying our password over and over. And we just move on. So we're moving on. Kindness. It's our next treasure. The Dalai Lama said, kindness is my religion. And I have to tell you, when I heard that, I wasn't really inspired. Because for me, love is the key, and kindness felt a little bit anemic next to love. So I've thought a lot about it over the years, because there's a lot about kindness, and I'm like, yeah, kindness is good, but wouldn't you rather love? It's got the power and the force of the entire universe behind you, and kindness felt to me like a surface thing. But what I have found about love is that true, infinite, spiritual love is something actually very hard to connect with, and you have to really connect inwardly, where kindness you can connect with on the dot. And in fact, when I first began ministry, I was talking a lot about love, and this woman came up after a service, and she said, I hear everything that you're saying. She goes, but I really have no idea what love is. Can you please explain to me what love is? And that was the hardest question I've ever had in my entire life. How do you explain what love is? And so, of course, we give examples, someone that you love, or a thing, when your heart just goes out. But somehow it just wasn't resonating with her. But I get it, because when we talk about love, it often, or at least when I talk, there's like this mystical piece. It's not just being nice to somebody. It's this deep power and presence. But kindness is something that we can access instantly. Kindness is a road to love, and that's why it's so important on our treasure hunt. That what a difference a life of kindness makes, where we are generous with ourself, with our gifts. We had a wonderful discussion this past Tuesday on the autobiography of a yogi, because the chapters were on the spiritual masters have, in Hinduism, they're called powers, siddhas. They get, as you're going on the spiritual journey, you get these powers to do amazing things. And I was sharing that in the Christian, same thing, but they don't call them powers, they call them gifts. And the reason why they share it as gifts as opposed to powers is that there's less ego involved. Powers is like, I have the power to do this, to levitate, to bilocate. I have the power, I've accessed, I use my mind, and through my mind I've created these powers. I've created these powers by using my mind. Ultimately, these teachers did get to a place of surrender, but they found the surrender after they used their mind to create the powers. In the Christian saints that I've been reading about, their goal is to love and know God, and then they get gifts. Everyone's gifts are different, But the key is that it's given. It's not of you. You can't take, and so much of kindness and generosity is getting ourselves out of the way. It's not about me doing it. And I was having this wonderful, I got a great chance yesterday to talk with our beautiful Beth Stiles. And she was talking about, well, that's how we want to live our life, is not just mystics, people, but everyone. We all have these gifts. Everyone has gifts. And if everybody shows up to give the gifts that you've been given, because we've all been given gifts, then suddenly things start happening in a way that if only one person's giving. We need a team of people. When we're participating in anything, and I know you all know this, it's so much more fun to participate if everyone is sharing their gifts. And we all know that we all have different gifts. So what one person's gift is different than another person's gift, and it's all these people sharing their gifts to make something really fly, to really pour through people in ways we can't imagine. So we want to be generous and kind with our gifts. You've been given a gift. Be generous, be kind, give your gifts. There is someone maybe some of you have already heard of him. I've just recently become aware of him. And I'm sure, there's just some things I know. I'm not usually an impulsive person, but I'm pretty sure we're going to hear a lot more about this guy and his organization and as we move on in our year. But his name is Nippon Meda, I believe his name is. And he and his wife decided, they went to school here in America, but they're Indian heritage, so they decided to give up all their money and walk 1,000 miles across India. And so basically everything, all the food that they had, where they stayed, was all given to them by the kindness of strangers who had never met them, didn't know they were coming. There was no advance notice. They just decided to rely on the kindness of the universe moving through people. And of course he has these amazing stories, and they're giving their generosity, they're giving their gifts, they're receiving other people's gifts. So there's a lot of exchange of gifts. None of it's planned, none of it's organized. It's just trusting every moment in spirit. And he says the most beautiful thing. He said, I gave my money until there was no more money. Then I gave my time until there was no more time. And so then I just gave myself. Generosity of spirit. Getting our bloated nothingness out of the way and allowing these generous gifts that are our gifts that we have and pour them out to the world. That is one of the greatest treasures we can give. There is no other. There's only one. So as you're giving from the Spirit, not of you, not from separation, not of you, you're giving from Spirit out into the world, you're also receiving. And one of the things he points out is sometimes I couldn't tell if I was giving or receiving because it was all happening simultaneously. I remember Shunmu Suzuki talked about when someone said, I'm just so tired and burned out. And he said, that's your separate self that's saying that. When we're in our separate self, it's because we think we're the ones doing it. Let go. Be generous. Be generous with wherever you are all day long. That's a treasure. So you're inside of your mind. We're working on self-talk, being generous and kind with our inner world, and that starts to pour out in our outer world. This is a way of life. This is living a life of treasure. Where our treasure is, there is our heart, or where our heart is, there is our treasure. And then lastly, the treasure is the treasure of small things. Sometimes we think of treasure as a big golden treasure or the big things in life. But the principle is, as I know that you know, is the entire universe. This actually was on page 17 of Edinburgh lectures for any of those people who just took the Trower class, because I loved it so much. He builds to it, and then it gets, well, that's the first or second chapter. The entire universe, the entire cosmos is contained in one moment of time and space, because time and space is just an extension. Spirit is beyond time and space. So that's why we can't conceive it. All of spirit is contained in one moment of time and space. Rumi says the same thing. The entire ocean is contained in a drop. There is no small in spirit. It's one of the greatest gifts I got when I was on the other side of the veil. And it was the number one thing that Spirit, there's two things that Spirit really was just really hammering away at me in my lesson. Is this, there's no such thing as measurement, because measurement implies other, and there is no other. There's nothing to measure against, so there's do not compare, because there's no other. There's no other to compare yourself with, because there's only one. There's nothing to measure. And when we really get this, and this is something I was just even thinking with spiritual community, where I did all my training was in a mega spiritual community. Thousands of people, loads of energy. I was listening to a guy going to a World Cup soccer game. He said, oh my gosh, the energy is like it's out of the roof. But I used to meditate when I was at Agape in the services with all the energy is high, and you feel the energy. But then I went at Reverend Ellen's center, and her center's down in San Jose, Center for Spiritual Enlightenment, and she's very quiet. She's very low-key in her talks, very quiet and gentle. And it's a very gentle group. And we were meditating, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I felt when I was at Agape. The external was totally different. The internal was exactly the same. And then coming into a community that is small, we're here. There's just, people comment about the numbers here. And I'm like, just go inside. It's the exact same energy. It's the exact same thing. There is no big or small. And so as we learn this and realize there is no small about you. There's no small about any gift that you give. It's huge when it's done from Spirit. I was walking along the other day, and I don't know why this was a new thing for me. I've never seen a tiny little frog before. I've seen normal frogs, but little baby, so cute. And I was walking on, a little baby frog, and I'm following it. It's so cute. And then I kept walking, and then another one. I saw 3 in one walk. I'd never seen one before. And I thought the amount of joy that little baby frog gave me was as big as seeing a giant whale. They were the same. I was just like, wow. The little things matter. I tend to be a smiler. I smile a lot. I didn't think about it until somebody commented and said, you're always smiling, and I felt like they were accusing me. I'm like, sorry. But I had a cloud over my head one day, and I looked up. Total stranger was just staring at me, smiling. And I'm like, oh, that does feel good. Just a smile. It seems so small, but it changes everything. These little moments. Reverend Verona last week talked about putting little notes on people's rear view mirrors. Just all these little things, little moments, opening the door, please and thank you. And I'm so just little moments. Everything counts. They have a ripple effect. The one big extravagance we have in our family, I gave it to Jack as a birthday present years ago, and I've kept it ever since, is we get someone to clean our apartment. It's the best thing ever. I highly recommend it. But those little moments, when they come, they're teaching me Spanish. I'm so bad at languages. It took them forever just for me to learn, que tenga un buen día. But we laugh and we have a good time. And then every time when we come back, they do a little something with the toilet paper. And she made a little rose the other day. I'm like, oh, did you see she made a rose, Jack? I mean, it's so small, but it makes me so happy. And Jack, he gets happy too. Yeah, I saw the rose. Little things. Little things. This is how we bring heaven on earth. This is the treasure. The treasures that are promised us are not something in the future. They're right now. Our self-talk, our generosity of giving our gifts and giving those gifts, no matter how small we might think they are. As Bruno Mars, you are a treasure. And any little thing that you can give, it's a gift. It can take you right out of a bad mood. No matter how bad a mood you are, you start doing something kind and little something, just for someone else. It opens your heart up again, right? You've all experienced that. So I just want to share one more thing about this guy, Nipun, I don't know. I Googled, how do you say Nipun, and they didn't have it, so I don't know how to say it. He was sharing about so he really believes in this small act of kindness. And so he started living this way of doing small acts of kindness. And it was really great. I was listening to him there was a little transcript of an interview he gave a talk, and then people were asking questions. And to every question, the guy said, well, I'm having trouble with my parents, and they're giving this whole situation. What do you expect? What do you think I should do? And he says, well, I think trying some small acts of kindness would really help the situation. Someone else said, well, I'm having this financial problem. I think doing some small acts of kindness would help the situation. And then finally he goes, is there any question that you want to ask so I can tell you little small acts of kindness is the answer? So it's not this deep, so he's coming from it from a different perspective than I am, and I love it. It makes me so happy. Rather than this deep, powerful love, and you have to access and meditate, which is all important. I'm not dismissing, that's yes. And these little acts of kindness. And so he's done that. And he's gotten other people to do it. Has anyone heard of Service Space? I think it's called Service Space. Has anyone heard of that? It has something like 1.5 million members. Big names, average people from all over are getting involved. He has never done a single bit of advertising. He's never done fundraising. It's all volunteer. It's happening all over the world. People are giving service and doing these, and it all comes from little acts of kindness. Just keep doing little acts of kindness. And he said, trust the ripple effect. Trust that ripple effect. It's impacting the world. And so the more and more people who are doing these small acts of kindness, the more we are generous with our gifts, the more we are self-talking from that place of knowing who and what we are and who and what this entire planet is. By the way, there's no greater small act of kindness. That's not a small act of kindness. It's the self-talk. It changes the world. And that's why we're here, is to discover this world as heaven on earth. So he tells a story, and I'll just end with this story, rather than one I planned. But I love this story too. He talks about his great-grandfather who was very poor in India. And one of the things the great-grandfather did, he'd go out for these walks, and he would carry this little wheat germ with him, and he would feed the little anthills. So every anthill that he passed, he would give them a little wheat. And that was just a moment of generosity for a man who had almost nothing, of just giving to the small little anthill. And he said, what Nippon Meita says is, that was my great-grandfather. Those anthills are long gone. But the generosity of heart that fueled that is the same generosity of heart that fueled my grandfather, my father, and fuels me. There's no end to that ripple effect of just a small act of kindness, to these small little moments of treasure that we all have to give and to share with everyone else, not just externally, but in our heart, in how we speak about ourselves and about one another. Oneness. We begin and end with this beautiful one love on our treasure hunt today. So we're going to pray, and we're just going to do a little differently. I'll just open up with the oneness, and then we're going to go silent exteriorly, and I'm going to ask, because this is about self-talk, right? And we want to self-talk beautiful things. So we're going to use this time of prayer. So I'll open it up, and then we're going to go silent, and you're going to pray inside your interior world. You're not praying out loud, just inside, full of what is true about you and about this world. You join me in that? And then when I feel it, I'll just say, thank you, God, and so it is. All right? You with me? I want to see everyone's head nodding, because you all have to be praying, not just some of you. Everyone. Oh, good. Good. All right. We're all doing this together. So we'll just go silent then, Jack, after the beginning, okay? All right. So it is with so much joy to know that we know that we know the greatest treasure of all, the one power, the one presence, the one love that is in, through, and as all creation. There is no place where it stops and something else begins. It is infinite and it is eternal. There is no place where this love is not fully, wholly, and completely being of itself, expressing itself and sharing itself. And how grateful I am to know that each and every one of us is right where this love is, and this love is right where we are. There is no separation. There is no other. And we open our hearts into infinity. We let it all in. And from this place of one love, I invite us all now to speak our prayer in the interior of our being. How grateful we are to know that we know and to speak what we know in our heart and know that this treasure continues to unfold in ways we can't even begin to imagine. For all of the good and the treasures of heaven that are right here and right now, only to be discovered, I just say thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God. And I invite us all now to release our words, to let them be, and to say together, and so it is.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I